The ocean stretched endlessly, its waves curling and folding like the breath of something ancient. At the edge of this world lay a seaside town, perched upon black cliffs and wrapped in a veil of mist. The streets were narrow, paved with uneven cobblestones, and the salt in the air clung to every window, every lantern, every breath. This was not a place often visited, nor a place easily forgotten. It was the kind of town where the sea spoke louder than the people, where whispers lingered longer than footsteps, and where stories were passed not through words, but through silence. Renji arrived here at twilight when the ferry cut across the waves and docked at the creaking wooden pier. He carried almost nothing, just a worn duffel bag and a heaviness in his gaze, as though he had walked far longer than the journey itself. He was not a tourist. He had not come for the sea breeze or the festival lights. He had come because of a dream. For nights upon nights, the same vision haunted him, a girl standing on the cliffs, her hair whipped by the wind, her eyes filled with sorrow that felt ancient. He had heard her voice in that dream, soft but unyielding, calling him to a place he had never seen. And yet, when he stepped onto the pier, the air smelled of her, as though the dream had simply guided him home. The town moved around him like a memory he did not own. Vendors packed away baskets of fish that still glistened with sea spray. Children ran barefoot, chasing one another with festival masks. Lanterns were being strung across alleyways, their paper skins trembling with the wind. Everything felt alive, yet in the corner of every glance, there lingered a silence, like the ocean was listening too closely. He found himself drawn upward, toward the cliffs. And there she was. She stood at the very edge, her pale blue dress fluttering, her long silver-black hair brushing against her cheeks. She turned to him slowly as though she had always known he was there, as though she had been waiting for this moment for centuries. Her eyes, deep and restless like the tide, locked with his. And then, with a voice he recognized from his dreams, she whispered, "You came, just like the sea promised." Renji's breath caught. He had never seen her before, yet every detail felt like déjà vu, carved into him by some invisible hand. But before he could speak, the ocean shifted. The waves below grew violent, thrashing against the rocks with a sudden ferocity that startled even the gulls from the sky. She looked back toward the water, her expression hardening. The ocean doesn't forgive those who change destiny. If you stay, Renji, it will try to take you too. Her words weighed heavier than the storm clouds gathering above. That night, the town was bathed in lantern light. The annual festival had begun, a ritual older than any living resident could remember. Families and strangers gathered by the shore, each carrying delicate lanterns glowing softly in their palms. One by one, they set them afloat, sending prayers across the water, messages for the ones the sea had taken. The horizon filled with orange light, like fireflies drifting across the dark water. Renji stood among them, uncertain. And then, beside him, she appeared again. The girl, Aoi. Her face was illuminated by the fragile glow of her lantern, her eyes shimmering with a sadness too deep to speak aloud. He found himself asking, almost without realizing, "Who was your prayer for?" "For someone who never came back." She didn't explain. She didn't have to. When their hands brushed as they lowered the lantern into the tide, an electric pulse rushed through him, not quite love, not quite fear, but something inevitable, something binding. In that fleeting touch, Renji felt both a beginning and an ending. The sea, however, was not gentle that night. As the lanterns floated farther out, Renji saw it, something no one else seemed to notice. Just beyond the soft glow of the lanterns, pale shapes rose from the depths. Hands. Countless, ghostly hands reaching from beneath the waves, desperate, clawing, trying to grasp the fragile light before sinking back into the abyss. His heart thundered in his chest. He blinked, half believing it was an illusion. But when he turned to Aoi, He saw the same terror mirrored in her face. She knew. She had seen them too. You shouldn't have come. And with those words, Renji understood. The town was not ordinary. The girl was not ordinary. And the ocean was not simply water. It was alive, restless, and watching. The days that followed settled over Renji like mist, slow, quiet, but never lifting. The town carried its rhythm. The morning bells, the creak of fishing boats, the cries of gulls circling above. Yet to him, everything seemed to circle back to her. Aoi. She was never in one place for long. Sometimes he found her at the cliffs, watching the horizon with a gaze that seemed to pierce through time itself. Other times, she drifted through the market, her presence noticed yet never approached, as if the townspeople lived with an unspoken agreement not to disturb her. He tried to ask about her once, when buying bread from a vendor. The old woman had frowned, lowering her eyes. Some things are better left unspoken, boy. The sea keeps its secrets, and so should we. Renji had walked away with the bread, but not the answer. One evening, he found Aoi sitting at the edge of the pier, her feet just above the water, her pale dress glowing faintly in the silver of the moon. He approached carefully, but she did not turn to him. The sea, she whispered, is always hungrier at night. He sat beside her, the silence thick with something more than words. Finally, he asked the question that had burned since the festival. Those hands in the water. I saw them. You did too, didn't you? She closed her eyes, her lashes trembling. Then, slowly, she nodded. They're the ones who drowned. Their prayers never reach the surface. Every year, the festival reminds them, and every year, they try to climb back. Her voice broke slightly, and Renji felt the pull of her sorrow. He wanted to reach for her hand, but the ocean below hissed as though it might devour even that small gesture. Why me? He finally asked. Why did I dream of you before I ever came here? This time, she turned to him. Her eyes shimmered like titapools, filled with secrets he wasn't sure he wanted to hear. Because, she whispered, the sea already chose you. The words carved into him like ice. He felt the truth of them, though he didn't understand. He didn't want to. Days blurred into nights, and Renji found himself drawn to her again and again. They spoke little of the curse, but much of other things. He learned that Aoi loved the sound of rain on rooftops, that she had never once left this town, that she could tell the time of day simply by listening to the waves. And in return, she asked him questions, where he had come from, what his favorite season was, if he had ever been in love. When he admitted he hadn't, she smiled faintly. Then maybe you were saving it. Her smile was rare, but it stayed with him longer than it should have. But the ocean was not patient. One night, as Renji walked alone along the shore, he heard voices, faint, broken whispers rising from the tide. He turned, and in the froth of the waves, he saw faces. Pale, blurred, half-formed people with hollow eyes, mouths that moved without sound. He stumbled back, heart racing, but the voices grew clearer. Come back. Stay with us. The tide remembers. Renji ran. He didn't stop until he reached the cliffs, where Aoi stood waiting as if she had known. She caught his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. You saw them, didn't you? The drowned will try to claim you. They think you belong to them now. His chest heaved. Why me? Her voice trembled, breaking between fear and guilt. Because you came here. Because the moment you set foot in this town, the sea marked you. The truth struck harder than the waves. He was trapped. That night, Renji could not sleep. His room at the inn felt suffocating, every creak of the wooden beams echoing like the sea's laughter. When he finally drifted into uneasy dreams, he found himself underwater, drifting among lanterns that glowed faintly before fading. And there, among the drowned, he saw her Aoi. Her hair floated around her like ink, her eyes open but empty, her lips moving with words he could not hear. He woke in a cold sweat, gasping. But when he stumbled outside, desperate for air, she was there, standing beneath the lantern-lit street. "You saw it, didn't you?" she asked quietly. He couldn't answer. His throat was tight. I don't want to lose you," he finally said, though he didn't know when fear had turned into something deeper, something irreversible. Oi's expression softened, then cracked, revealing the sorrow she carried. She stepped closer, her hand brushing his. "Then hold on to me. Even if the ocean tries to take us both." From that night on, they were no longer strangers bound by chance. They were bound by choice, by fear, by a love that had no place in the laws of the ocean. And though every step closer brought warmth, every tide brought the reminder. The sea was waiting, watching, and it would not forgive them. The ocean grew restless. Each night its waves struck harder against the cliffs, as though warning the town of something coming. The fishermen spoke of nets torn by unseen hands, boats returning with waterlogged planks that seemed bitten through. The townsfolk whispered of omens, but no one said it aloud. They only watched Renji when he passed, their gazes heavy with something between pity and fear. He had been chosen, and they all knew what that meant. But Renji ignored their stares. He could not keep away from Aoi. The more the sea pushed against him, the more he was drawn to her, like a moth circling a flame it cannot resist. Every moment with her felt stolen, borrowed from a fate that might snatch it away at any second. And perhaps that was why he clung so desperately to those moments. One evening, they climbed the hill behind the town, where the abandoned lighthouse stood. The paint had long since peeled, and its windows stared like hollow eyes across the ocean. Oi led him inside, her lantern casting trembling light across stone walls scarred by salt. "It was here," she whispered, "that I was told the truth." Renji turned to her, confused. "The truth of what?" Her fingers brushed the stone as though tracing a scar. "My family, every generation, one child is marked. Chosen by the sea. Bound to it until the day it claims them." She looked at him then, her voice breaking. "I was the chosen one. But when you came, everything shifted. The ocean saw you. It marked you too." Her words cut deeper than any blade. Renji stepped back, heart racing. "So what does that mean? That we're both cursed?" Oi's eyes shimmered in the lantern glow. "It means we cannot escape. Unless one of us surrenders to the sea, it will not stop until it takes us both." The silence that followed felt endless. The waves outside roared as though laughing. But when Aoi's hand found his, her touch was warm, fragile, human. "I don't want to let go," she whispered. And Renji, despite the fear clawing inside him, whispered back, "Then we won't." The storm came 3 nights later. The sea unleashed itself upon the town with a fury the elders swore they had never seen. Waves rose like walls of glass, crashing into the docks, splintering boats like toys. The townspeople fled into their homes, shuttering windows, bolting doors. But Renji could not stay inside. Something in him, or perhaps something in the sea, pulled him out into the chaos. The rain lashed his skin, the wind tore at his clothes. And on the cliffs, through the storms, fury, he saw her. Oi, standing at the edge, her hair whipped into the sky, her dress clinging to her as though she were part of the storm itself. He fought his way to her, the gale threatening to hurl him into the abyss. When he reached her, he seized her arm. "What are you doing?" he shouted above the roar. Her eyes were wide, glistening with rain and tears. "I thought, if I gave myself to the sea, maybe it would spare you." The words tore through him like lightning. He pulled her closer, shaking his head. "No, don't you dare. Don't you dare leave me." For a moment, it felt as if the storm itself froze around them. The rain stung, the waves bellowed, but their world narrowed to the space between them. Renji pressed his forehead to hers, his voice trembling. "If it wants us, then it will have to fight us both. Because I would rather drown with you than live without you." Her breath caught. Her hands clutched his shirt like a lifeline. And then, as though enraged by his defiance, the sea rose higher, a monstrous wave, towering, hungry. The wave crashed. For a heartbeat, everything was water, sound, chaos. Renji felt himself ripped away, spinning, dragged beneath. Salt burned his throat, shadows closed in. And in the swirling dark, he saw them again, the drowned. Pale faces, hollow eyes, reaching hands that clawed at his arms, his legs, pulling him down. Stay with us, join us. He thrashed, desperate, but the hands multiplied. Cold fingers curled around his wrists, his ankles, his throat. He screamed, but no sound came. And then warmth. Aoi's hand, glowing faintly, broke through the water, seized his. Her voice, impossibly clear beneath the waves. Hold on to me. He grasped her hand with every ounce of strength left in him. And in that moment, the drowned recoiled, shrieking in silence, scattering into the abyss. The ocean itself seemed to hesitate. Together, they broke the surface, gasping against the storm. Lightning split the sky, illuminating their faces as they clung to the rocks, alive. But Renji knew the sea was not finished. It had not retreated. It was only waiting. The storm passed by dawn, leaving the town battered and broken. But the sea, calm now, shimmered with a stillness that felt more dangerous than any wave. Renji and Aoi stood together at the shore, soaked, bruised, trembling. They had survived. But survival was not victory. The sea was patient. And it had forever to claim them. The storm had passed, but the town did not breathe easier. Every wave that lapped against the shore felt deliberate now, every tide heavier, as though the sea itself was holding its breath. Renji and Aoi moved through streets lined with broken lanterns, shattered boats, and silence. The townsfolk avoided their eyes, their gazes filled with something heavier than fear, resignation. They had seen this before. They knew how it ended. But Renji refused that silence. He would not accept the ocean's verdict. Still, as the days went on, the tension between them thickened. The nights grew restless. Every time Renji closed his eyes, he felt water filling his lungs. Every time he woke, he found Aoi staring out at the horizon, her expression caught between longing and despair. One evening, as the sky blushed with fading light, Renji found her standing barefoot at the edge of the surf, the waves touching her toes like a lover's caress. Aoi, he said softly, tell me the truth. If the sea takes you, what will happen to me? She did not turn. Her voice was a whisper carried on the wind. It will take you too. That is why it marked you. We are bound, Renji. The ocean does not separate its offerings. His chest tightened. He stepped closer, his voice breaking. Then we'll run. We'll leave this town, this shore. If we go far enough. She finally turned, her eyes glistening with tears that caught the dying light. There is no far enough. The sea is everywhere. There is nowhere it cannot reach. Her words crushed the fragile hope in his chest. For the first time, he felt the enormity of what they were facing, not just a curse, not just a town's legend, but the endless, eternal ocean. That night, the tide called again. The drowned returned, their pale hands clawing up from the water's edge, their hollow eyes fixed on him. But this time, they did not wait at a distance. They emerged, crawling from the surf like broken marionettes, their limbs dripping, their whispers louder. Come back, Renji. She cannot save you. Join us. Renji stumbled back, but always stepped in front of him, her arms outstretched as if to shield him. Her voice was sharp, desperate. You will not take him. The drowned froze, their whispers cracking into silence. The ocean roared in answer, a wave surging high behind them. Renji pulled her back, his voice ragged. You can't fight it. It will kill you. But she shook her head, tears mixing with the spray of the sea. If it means saving you, then let it. The wave crashed, but it did not fall. It hung above them, suspended, as though the sea itself was waiting for their decision. And in that suspended moment, Renji understood. This was no storm, no curse born from nothing. This was a choice. The sea was not asking for both of them. It was asking for one. His heart pounded as he looked at her. Aoi, trembling but unbroken, her hair whipping around her face, her lips parted in terror and love. He wanted to tell her he would take her place, that he would give himself up. But when he opened his mouth, she spoke first. I love you. The words stole his breath. He hadn't realized until now how much he needed to hear them. Tears burned his eyes as he answered, his voice breaking apart. I love you too. And then the wave fell. The world dissolved into water. Renji was dragged beneath, spinning, gasping, his body seared by cold. The drowned surrounded him, their eyes fixed, their hands pulling until he saw her. Aoi, her face glowing. Faintly, her hair spread like a halo in the darkness. She swam to him, her arms wrapping around him as if she could anchor him to herself. Forgive me. Her lips pressed against his, a kiss that tasted of salt and sorrow. And then she let go. Renji screamed, but the ocean swallowed his voice. He reached for her, but her body drifted back into the dark, the drowned parting to make space. Her eyes closed, her form dissolving into the current. The drowned vanished. The hands loosened. The ocean released him. Renji was thrown upward, bursting through the surface, gasping, choking, coughing against the dawn light. He collapsed on the shore, trembling, broken. The waves were calm now. The sea had taken its offering, and it had chosen her. Days passed, but Renji could not leave. He wandered the cliffs where they first met, the pier where they sat together, the lighthouse where she told him the truth. Every place held her absence like an echo. The town returned to its quiet rhythm, but for him, every tide was a wound that would not close. One night, when the festival came again, he joined the townsfolk at the shore. He lit a lantern, his hands trembling as he set it on the water. It drifted away, glowing faintly, carried into the horizon. And for a moment, in the reflection of its light on the waves, he saw her Aoi, smiling faintly, her eyes soft, her lips forming words he could not hear. Then the light faded, and she was gone. But Renji whispered back anyway. I'll find you again. The sea remained silent. But somewhere in its endless depth, something stirred, not with hunger, but with memory. Thus the ocean kept its secret. The town endured, the waves continued their song. But for Renji, the sea would never be just water again. It would always be her voice, her touch, her sacrifice. And though destiny had claimed her, love had carved its mark deeper than the tide. And so, against the endless horizon, the story of Renji and Aoi lived on not as a tale of loss nor victory, but as proof that even the ocean could not drown a love that had once been spoken.